Good morning, good evening, whatever time of day it is for you. Welcome to this thing that I do called Thor's Entertainment. I am Thor, and I am starting a new playthrough today for another game. And the game this time around is going to be Resident Evil, and specifically the remake of Resident Evil. Now, this was originally remade, I believe, in 2002 for the GameCube, but it went on to be remastered and distributed onto other consoles over time. In fact, I'm playing on the PlayStation 4 version of the game now. And this is a game I put plenty of hours onto previously. In fact, I've actually platinum trophied this game. But that was a few years ago, and I'm not as familiar with it now as I was then. So getting to revisit it now for a video, it should be kind of interesting to see just how much I remember and how much I have forgotten.
Resident Evil.
I think when it comes to key items, I'll be just fine, and I'll go with the highest difficulty available to me here, and yeah. Whenever it comes to enemies and how to dodge them and things of that nature. Oh, and with things like inventory management, because you have limited amounts of things that you can carry. That is where I think I am going to be the most rusty. But yeah, let's go ahead and start playing. And I will be doing two different playthroughs, one with Jill and one with Chris, and we're starting off with Jill. Let's go ahead and check out the opening cutscene.
Alpha Team is flying around the forest zone, situated in northwest Raccoon City, where we are searching for the helicopter of our compatriots, Bravo Team, who disappeared during the middle of their mission.
Haven't found it yet?
No, not yet, Brad. Bizarre murder cases have recently occurred in Raccoon City. There are outlandish reports of families being attacked by a group of about 10 people. Victims were apparently eaten. The Bravo Team was sent in to investigate, but we lost contact.
Look, Chris.
Bravo Team's helicopter was a derelict. Save for the remaining body of Kevin. We continued our search for the other members, and it turned into a nightmare. This way. Damn it! Make for that mansion!
All right, we got the first cutscene knocked out. I don't really talk during cutscenes, and I'm not skipping any throughout this playthrough, and we got a few more to go. Let's go ahead and get our initial impressions of the Spencer Mansion, and I'll be talking to you again here shortly.
There are only 3 STARS members left now. Captain Wesker, Barry, and myself. We don't know where Chris is.
What is this place?
Not quite your ordinary house, that's for sure.
Hey, Wesker, where's Chris?
Jill, no. You don't want to go back out there.
But we've got to find...
What was that?
Chris?
No.
Jill, go and investigate.
I'm going with her. Chris and I go back a long way.
All right. You two go. I'll secure this area.
Stay sharp. A dining room.
Alright, I finally get to control the character for about 5 seconds.
I think you'd better take a look at this.
What is it?
Blood. Jill, see if you can find any other clues. I'll be examining this. Let's just hope it's not Chris's.
Alright, 4 more rapid-fire cutscenes, and then we get some uninterrupted gameplay. Yeah, Jill has a lot of early game cutscenes, especially when compared to Chris. Actually, I think Jill has more cutscenes than Chris just in general, but not by a lot. Okay, we did not find Chris, but we found another STARS member named Kenneth, and we're just gonna nope the hell out of here.
Barry!
What is it?
Look out! It's a monster!
Let me take care of it! What the hell is this thing?
I found Kenneth killed by this thing. Let's report this to Wesker.
That's impressive. Barry's gun can basically one-shot any normal zombie, which might make that the most powerful common zombie in Spencer Mansion history.
Wesker! Jill, help me look for him. Let's not leave this hall.
Good idea.
I'm just gonna go up the stairs, touch the wall, and run back. And then we get the very last cutscene for a while, and then we actually get some gameplay and some real time to talk. And then I'll go over kind of what I'm actually wanting from this playthrough.
Barry.
Any luck, Jill?
No, nothing. What's going on around here? I can't figure it out.
Same here.
Chris and now Wesker.
There's not much we can do. We can search for him separately. I'll investigate the dining room again.
Okay then, I'll try the door on the other side.
This mansion is gigantic. We could easily get lost. Let's start from the first floor.
Okay.
Oh, I almost forgot. It's a lockpick. You'd make better use of it.
Thanks. I may need it.
Listen, if something happens, let's meet up in this hall. Got it?
Okay.
And finally, the rapid-fire cutscenes are over and I have time to talk. So we're going to act like that whole conversation between Jill and Barry did not just happen, because we are not going across the hall like Jill said. We're going right back to the dining room, which Barry must be incredibly fast because he's already no longer in here. Like, that man can move. So that's where the first encounter zombie moved to, and we're also going to be picking up Kenneth's body camera. We'll watch the video on that later. Anyway, the reason for going over here instead of the direction that Jill suggested is because all the rooms over on that side of the mansion are currently locked and require a key. And the key it requires is something that we do not currently have. So instead, we are backtracking over to this side of the mansion and we're going to start looking for some items in order to get the key that we need. I guess the reason why the conversation was kind of framed that way was so that the player would be encouraged to go check out that side of the mansion, discover the doors were locked, and then understand that they needed to go find a key somewhere else in the mansion. So yeah, we're going to work on that. Also, I kind of discovered something interesting here for a new game. Like at the very beginning, you saw I had 3 options to select that would indicate what kind of difficulty I was going to have in this playthrough, and I selected what sounded like it was going to be the most strenuous and difficult one, the one about climbing mountains. I did that because I thought I was going to put this on hard mode, but if this were hard mode, there would not have been a handgun magazine back there, and there also wouldn't have been 2 green herbs. Instead, there would just be one green herb and that'd be it. So I guess whenever you start a brand new game and you select that most difficult indication, it actually just puts it on normal mode, and maybe hard mode is just unlocked after you beat the game once. I didn't realize that initially, but I found that interesting. Anyway, in that previous hallway, I picked up a green arrow. That's going to end up being an important item here in a moment, but I'm not really reviewing it or doing anything with it right now, just to save myself some time. But once I make it to the area where that item is relevant, then I'll actually analyze that item and then show what it's for. And speaking of things that are important, what I'm currently doing is not important at all. I used to think that this blue gem that the statue is holding is going to be useful or important to something later on, like it was going to be necessary. But having played through this game with Chris and Jill after a couple of years of not having touched the game at all, I have realized that this item is actually not necessary or required to progress in the game, so I'm kind of just wasting time. Plus, if you just don't push this statue off of the walkway, later on in the game, it turns out it just falls over or gets pushed over by something else anyway, so there's no reason for you to do this, even if you want the optional item that this can give you. Anyway, for this Resident Evil playthrough, I did have a few different goals in mind besides just completing the game. For one, as you could probably already tell, I intend to show every single cutscene that I possibly can so the story can develop and be fully understood and enjoyed. Besides that, though, I also intend to beat the game in less than 3 hours. Beating the game in under 3 hours with either character can result in a couple of fun things for you. For one, there is a trophy requirement for it. It's the Don't Stop Running trophy. So if you manage to accomplish that, then you get that trophy. I already have it, but still, it's a fun goal to have since I believe that is the most strenuous time requirement in the game for a trophy or any sort of unlockable item. And speaking of unlockable items, if you do end up beating it in less than 3 hours, you get the infinite ammo rocket launcher. Alright, it's finally time for that key item. So the dialogue told us that this is a tomb engraved with a picture of an angel. And it also told us that there is an indentation in the shape of an arrowhead. Which of course sounds very familiar because we just picked up a green arrow. So yeah, then we go into the menu, we go ahead and select that arrow and we examine it, and sure enough the arrowhead comes off. And if you examine the arrowhead again, it'll tell you that the arrowhead is made out of paradots, sometimes referred to as a poor man's emerald. Not really important, but gee whiz. So yeah, then we can use that arrowhead, we put it in the indentation, and suddenly a pathway is open before our eyes. Inside that pathway, we are going to find the Book of Curses. We're going to go ahead and pick that up. But yeah, if we examine the Book of Curses again, we're going to find that there is a key in the back of it, and we're going to need that key. It's going to be the sword key. So finally, we can check out some other rooms in the mansion. And we also see 4 different gravestones with different faces on them in different shapes, like their full face one, there's going to be one without a nose and a mouth, and I think just one without a mouth. And when we read through the Book of Curses, we read that there are 4 masks. There's going to be a mask that speaks no evil, a mask that smells no evil, a mask that sees no evil, and a mask that cannot speak, smell, or see evil. When all 4 are in place, evil will awaken. So yeah, that description of all the masks sounds really similar to those faces on the gravestones over there, so pretty good indication that we're going to need to find some masks. So before taking the time to make sure I pointed out that the next objective we have is to find 4 masks, I was talking about how I intend to beat the game in less than 3 hours. It's going to be a little bit easier said than done whenever I'm not skipping cutscenes, because cutscenes still count towards your in-game time. So all the cutscenes that I am watching just increase the amount of time it takes me to complete it and counts against me whenever it comes to the final time for beating the game. So getting less than 3 hours is actually harder because I'm watching everything. But still, it is completely possible even if we do end up cutting it close. Right now, I'm just going to go ahead and use the sword key to unlock a few doors that are in this main entrance hall. And speaking of cutscenes that slow us down for that 3-hour mark, we're about to kick off one more. Although it's a pretty short one. I actually think this is a cutscene that we're supposed to hit earlier in the game before we have the sword key when we first discovered that the doors are locked. But even so, it's fine, it still makes sense.
Barry.
Oh, Jill. Got any good news?
Other than I'm still alive in this madhouse? No.
Can't say it's much safer here either. We'd better secure our escape route first. There's gotta be a back door somewhere.
Alright then, let's split up again.
Hey, hold on a sec. Look what I've found.
What?
A can of fizz. It's sure to yellow and mellow those things. It's yours. Hopefully you won't have to use it.
What about you?
Oh, don't worry. I like the buddy system we have here.
I see. Thanks, I'll take it.
See you later.
Ciao.
Would you believe me if I said the voice acting in this is still much better than the original? Because it seems like whatever iteration of the very first Resident Evil game you play, unfortunately the voice acting is not amazing. I mean, I kind of love it the way that it is, but yeah, it's a little rough. Anyway, that was another cutscene running up our completion time. Besides the time requirements, I intend to only save 2 times in the entire game, and also I intend to save all the possible additional characters that we find along the way in this game. Or at the very least, I intend to prolong their lives for as long as possible, because there are some characters in this game that, well, they're just destined to die. There's no way you can save them. But you can keep them around longer depending on your decisions. Although there is also a trophy for letting everyone die and basically just saving yourself, so gee whiz, if you want to get through this game even faster than I'm doing, you can definitely cut the cutscenes in order to get through this game faster and also not save anybody, and that should work out for you to get a ridiculously low time. I don't actually need anything in this hallway again. I just really wanted to unlock this door so it was available to me, and I was also just kind of trying to dodge those zombies for a moment, and then reset their position once I went through the door and went back through it again. So they should be much easier to dodge now. Although I at least want to kill this one, that way I have one less obstacle at the very top level. Probably also kill the one at the very bottom of these steps as well, but we'll see what happens. I guess it is mention worthy that I prioritize the word dodge. In the grand scheme of things in this game, you do not end up taking out that many zombies. At least not if you're in a hurry, which I definitely am. Even more so than an action game or a horror game, I would call Resident Evil a resource management game. Because especially on the higher difficulties, there's just no way to have enough bullets to take out every single enemy in the game. Well, unless you have something with infinite ammo, which we are not using for this playthrough. So you really need to pick and choose whenever you decide to fight or run. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in situations, especially later in the game, where you just do not have the resources to fight back and you're inevitably going to lose. So yeah, for the early portions of this game, you may not actually see me fighting all that often. It's mostly going to be running around the mansion, getting everything unlocked, and just trying not to be taken out along the way. Although not to worry, there are going to be plenty of other fights throughout the game, especially like the boss battles. But in the early goings of this game, I definitely prioritize dodging and getting from point A to point B more than anything else. Now, what I'm about to do with Jill is definitely optional, but I like to do it just because I'm coming up on a part of the game that historically has not treated me very well on high difficulties. So I'm going into this room and I'm collecting the rusty shotgun, which the rusty shotgun is going to be the key to unlocking the actual shotgun that we get to use as a weapon. Now, you don't really need this because Jill has early access to a much better shotgun, so you could easily just hold out until that happens and save yourself the time and effort. But like I said, I'm coming up on something that I have to fight, and for one reason or another, at least a few years ago, resulted in me having to reset the game a couple of times. So I am not playing around this time. We are going to be successful, and I'm going to use the shotgun to get the job done. Oh, I didn't mention this earlier, but there is another benefit to not taking out the zombies, at least early on in this game. Now, we haven't covered the reason why yet, although we are getting pretty close to it, and I'll talk about it again whenever it becomes more relevant in that moment. But just know that besides, trying to get the best time that you possibly can, there is an additional benefit to sparing the zombies early on. And it makes things a little bit easier for you as well as you progress through the game. So right here I am making a pathing mistake. I intended to go back downstairs and cut through a door that would have been a shortcut to getting me all the way to the other side of the mansion, or at least shorter than the way that I came to get here to begin with. This is a bad path though, because the door I want to try going through on the bottom floor, well, it's locked and requires a key that we do not have yet, so I'm actually just wasting more time than I otherwise would have had I just backtracked like I have to do anyway. But yeah, gee whiz, that was my thought process. I wanted to use a door that isn't available to me yet. Although if it were, it would have been a lot faster. Oh, and as you can tell, the zombie here on the second floor of the dining area, yeah, he switches sides on you at some point. I don't really know if it's random or if it's at a set point in time, but yeah. Keep an eye out for that, otherwise you may find yourself running into him, thinking that you're going the safe way around the second floor, and in fact, he's just waiting for you. Now, I'm probably not going to be able to find every single journal entry in the entire game, but I am going to show as many of them as I can along the way. Oh, and I am about to do something else with Jill that is completely unnecessary and is also kind of a time waster. Again, as I have done these playthroughs with Jill and Chris, I kind of got reminded of a few things that I thought were important or necessary, but really are not. And the door that I am going to with Jill at the moment is the door to the kitchen area, which is locked unless you have the sword key. And this is also the last door, I believe, that I have to unlock with that key, so then I have the option to discard that key with no ramifications. Now, there are two problems with this decision, both of which waste my time. One is that there is another way into that room that you inevitably have to go through anyway just to progress in the game. And whenever you go into that room through the alternate path, there is yet another way out of it that does not require you to use the door that you are unlocking with the sword key. So it can remain locked the entire game and not impede your progress. And the other thing is that even if you were looking at this from the perspective of just trying to get rid of the key that is in your inventory, based on where I was with Jill, it would have been faster just to deposit this thing into one of the storage boxes instead of using the key. It would have wasted way less time. Just going to move this and pick up the dagger. Those are going to be super handy since I'm basically being a pacifist for most of this run and just trying to run by the zombies. Sometimes they catch you though, it doesn't really work out that well. And then I have this to get them off of me. But yeah, I just thought I would throw that one out there, that the very last door that I unlock with the sword key, yeah, that one's actually completely optional, and it's completely unnecessary for you to unlock it. And it is probably more beneficial to you just to avoid that door entirely. But on the positive side, that little distraction allowed me the opportunity to take out the very first encounter zombie from the very beginning of the game, which we eventually had to go around him a couple of times anyway, so, I mean, at least we don't have to deal with that anymore. It does not make up for the time lost, but, I mean, it's something. But okay, now we are done at the dog patio. The only reason we came out there was just to get the, oh goodness, what's it called? The herbicide? Anyway, that bag of plant killer. It's now in my inventory, you probably saw me pick it up. We don't really need it right now, but we will eventually end up needing that, and Jill has plenty of inventory space, so we're going to go ahead and get that item. And now we're going to go get the shotgun that I was talking about earlier. And the reason you need the rusty shotgun to get the actual shotgun is because you have to take the actual shotgun off of a wall mount, which, whenever you remove it from there, seems to be acting like some kind of a lever. And then I put the rusty shotgun back onto that wall mount, replacing the shotgun so that the lever is not activated. And what happens if you do not put anything back on that wall mount and the lever stays active? Whenever you try to leave that little office area, the ceiling will begin to descend down on you and will eventually crush you, assuming you don't duck back into the office and put something back on that mount. So yeah, that's why you need the rusty shotgun in order to replace the actual shotgun on that wall mount. And then we can continue on with the rest of the game with absolutely no ramifications, and not having to be crushed into a paste by the ceiling. Alright, time for the next key item, which is going to be a dog whistle. The dog whistle also comes equipped with a photograph and a note. The photograph indicating where we need to use the dog whistle, and note indicates why. And the crumpled memo note says, "Today, Sir Spencer told me to hide something where no one can find it. Well, I had this idea. I figured if I could somehow have it protected by a dangerous animal like the vicious canine that lives here, no one would be able to get near it. As far as I can tell, the mutt is always hanging out around the second floor balcony on the west side of the terrace, and he ought to come running at the sound of a dog whistle. This is where you come in. The thing is, I reckon you're the only person that can get near the damn dog without risking serious mauling, which means only you can put this collar on him. The objective that Sir Spencer wants hidden is concealed inside. You're the only person I can trust with this. Of course, you'll get something out of it as well. Remember that certain item that you've always wanted to get hold of? Well, in exchange for your services, I just might be able to get it for you. This could work out well for both of us." And that is the end of the memo, and it is signed John Tolman. So thank you, John. That was the first real journal-like entry that we have found here in the mansion, although it's definitely not going to be the last one. Since a lot of the people who resided in the Spencer mansion decided to take some notes, we're going to take the time to narrate them as we go. So, courtesy of that memo or that note, we now know that we need to go to the balcony on the second floor, use the dog whistle to get the dog to come out of its hiding place, and then we have to fight the dog for its collar and get whatever is inside. And that is exactly why I ended up getting that shotgun, by the way. I don't know what it was, but a few years ago, whenever I was playing through this part of the game, Those dogs managed to take me out on multiple occasions, even though the dogs really shouldn't be that difficult for this early in the game. I don't know what it was, but I kept screwing that part up back in the day, so this time around I did not waste any time or take any chances. I got the shotgun, I got that collar, and now we are good to progress on with the rest of the playthrough. No resets so far. So I'm going to where we need to use that dog collar now, and... Okay, you saw how that zombie got back up after it was supposedly dead on the ground for a really long time? Earlier, whenever I said there was an advantage to not taking out the zombies early in the game, that's what I was referring to. Because eventually they get back up in a new and altered form with claws, and they're much faster, and they'll actually run at you and do more damage and cause more problems. Okay, I just picked up the next key, the armor key, and by doing so I have activated a death trap. The gimmick here is if the key is no longer on that platform, the trap is active. If you put the key back, the trap will then reset, so you're no longer in danger. This is where the dog collar comes into play. If we examine the dog collar, there's a button. We hit that button, the dog collar opens and reveals what looks like a coin. But it turns out that coin is actually a retractable key. And that retractable key can be placed on the platform to reset the death trap so you're no longer in danger. And then the death trap has the fake key, and then we have the real one. And with that switcheroo out of the way, the death trap is no longer active and we are free to leave. There's nothing else in this room that we really need at the moment. There is another door here, but we can't open it yet. They'll come into play later on in the game. So now even more of the mansion is open to us now that we have the armor key, so we're going to go ahead and check all that stuff out. Also, you'll notice that the Crimson Head zombie that resurrected before our eyes a moment ago has repositioned himself somewhere in that hallway. So the death trap room and the birdcage room are accessible to you without you being attacked by anything, but if you try going anywhere else in that hallway, it might be a problem for you. And that was our first time being back in the birdcage room in a while, and you probably noticed that there was a change there as well. There used to be a dead body on the ground over in the corner at the bottom of the staircase, but that's gone now. And in its place, we now have birds in here, these crows. Now, these crows can be a problem if you disturb them, but as long as you don't do anything that'll upset them, they will just remain up there and not bother you for the entire game. So don't bother trying to fight them, just, go on your path and they'll ignore you. Now, regarding the body that was at the bottom of the staircase, what happened to it? I have no idea. Maybe the birds ate him. That is a joke, but now that I mention it, since they don't attack you at all, I mean, that would kind of make sense because that would imply that they are already full. Anyway, you've probably seen me in the background just unlocking a few doors along the way with this new key that we have, even though I'm not going into those doors yet. I'm just trying to make sure that I use the key everywhere that I can along the way, that way I can get rid of it as soon as possible, even if I don't need to go into those rooms yet. Although we are very quickly approaching the very first side character of the game, so that's exciting. Well, the next side character, I guess we already had Barry and Wesker.
Richard! What happened? You're wounded.
This whole place is a killing zone. There are monsters.
What did this to you?
A big snake. And it had to be poisonous.
Poisonous? Richard, hold on.
Bring me serum. I saw some, but didn't bring any.
I'll go and get it, okay? You're gonna make it.
Thanks.
Alright, so that's Richard, and he is dying unless we get him serum, which the map tells us where to go to get the serum, but it's actually in the same storage room we used earlier in this playthrough where we dropped off the grenades that Barry gave us. It's the storage room right by where we get the rusty shotgun as well for more context. But yeah, we are trying to save Richard, who was poisoned by a gigantic snake. This is something you have the option of doing regardless if you're using Jill or Chris. But in both cases, you can fail to save Richard. If you take too long to get the serum and then get all the way back to Richard in order to give him the serum, he will die, which will then take away his involvement in any of the rest of the game. So yeah, not only are we getting introduced to a new side character as the very first one that we have the option of saving, or, well, the potential of failing to save, which will then go on to influence the story going forward. Which there is a good benefit to keeping Richard alive other than just, being a good person, so we are definitely motivated to do this. We definitely want that benefit, but also I want these cutscenes because I do want this playthrough to be as enjoyable and as well told as possible. And part of that is getting all the potential storylines knocked out. Now, we cannot get every single storyline knocked out in a single playthrough with either Jill or Chris, because depending on your actions, your side characters will help you in different ways throughout the story. They won't help you in every single way. Like, I think if Barry helps you out with the first encounter zombie in this game, he won't be there to help you whenever you try to get the shotgun later, because there's a scenario where you don't need the rusty shotgun to get the actual shotgun. Whenever you're stuck and the ceiling is closing in on you, there is a scenario where Barry saves you. I could be wrong about that condition for Barry to help you out, but there's something like that where you have to meet certain criteria for certain events to happen. So yeah, I'm going to try and get as many of those storylines as I can, but I also can't get every single one of them. And this zombie is going to become very annoying for me because there's going to be times when I think he is dead, but he's still alive, and yet again he catches me right here at this door.
Here, Richard. I'm gonna give you a shot. Hang in there.
Jill, here's my radio. Take it. Does it ever not hurt?
And alright, we managed to get the serum back to Richard within the requisite amount of time to save his life. So he gets to hang around and possibly help us out later. But now we need to get back on track and start using the armor key to start finding more items to progress the story, which... Alright, we managed to avoid that annoying zombie I mentioned earlier. But anyway, now we're going to use that armor key to initiate a puzzle which should allow us to get our very first death mask of this playthrough. We just need to dance our way around this zombie who is blocking the door that we need to unlock and enter. Alright, job well done, and now we're off to get our death mask. The death masks being the masks that were hinted at in the Book of Curses, and we need all 4 of those to progress the story. And in here we have the Knight Armor Puzzle, which the pictures on the wall indicate the order that you need to go in for this, but you need to push in the front right one, and then you need to push in the back left one, and then you need to push in the back right one. And whenever you push in the back right one, it will automatically have the front left one pushed in. So with all those suits of armor pushed back against the wall, you can then hit the button at the platform in the middle of the room, and then the cage in the wall will open up, and then you can access the item inside, which is a box containing the mask. Which the box has a little puzzle of its own where the very top of it tells you that in order to open it, you need to hit the buttons related to the sun. Yeah, here we go. There's a design of the sun and the moon. On the plate it says, "Sunshine will awaken me," so it's indicating that the sunshine is what we need to open the box, which the sun has very specific symbols, and the moon has very specific symbols as well. So with the indication that we need to use the sun, we look for the buttons that match up with the sun symbols, we hit those buttons, and voila, the box opens and we have our mask. And with that out of the way, there's really only one other key item that we need up here on this second floor hallway, and it's going to be back towards where we left Richard. After giving him the serum, we can now go past him, and there's a door behind him as well. And that takes us to another hallway with a zombie in it. There's going to be 2 doors, one of which is locked and one of which is available. And now that we are in the hallway behind Richard, all we have to do is get rid of this zombie or dodge him, and so far that's going very, very poorly for me, but... well, we get through it eventually despite me doing an absolutely terrible job of fighting off that zombie. And then finally we are able to go into the available room, which is completely dark. We need to go light some candles so that it illuminates the room. To light the candles, we use a lighter that we found earlier in the playthrough in the same office where we got the dog whistle. Oh, there's also a magazine of handgun ammo just in case you need that. In my case, I definitely did. But yeah, we have a lighter that we need to use to light those candles. We've just kind of been holding on to that for a while. But yeah, with those candles lit, we now see that there is a shelf that we can move. We move that shelf, we find a zombie is behind it. We go ahead and dispatch of or dodge that zombie. And in my case, because I'm trying to conserve ammo, I elect to dodge or redirect the zombie. I'm just getting him to walk towards me, and I'm going to walk him around the table. Remember folks, it's very important to walk your zombies. Then we find another shelf, and on that shelf we find sheet music. Well, a few pages of sheet music. It's missing some. We're going to have to find the others. But yeah, once you have that, just go ahead and get out of that little back room area, and just make sure you avoid your freshly walked zombie, and now you're ready to progress on to the next stage. Which for me is going to be getting the other half of that sheet music. Oh, and healing, because that zombie in the hallway on the other side of Richard definitely kind of destroyed my life more than I expected, so yeah, that was a bit of a setback. But yeah, the sheet music, or the other half of the sheet music, that can be found in a piano room that we unlocked in the hallway where we had our very first zombie encounter. So I am going to make my way back there now. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to go directly to the piano room. I'm going to take the long way around because there's a couple other things I can do along the way. Like, I'd like to drop a few things off in that storage container and kind of manage my inventory a little bit better. But also, there's another death mask along the way that requires us to use an item that we have been holding on to for a little while now. So yeah, I'm going to take the long way around. And since it's going to take me a little bit of time to get all the way around to where I need to be, I guess I'll go ahead and reference a couple of the things that I said earlier on in this playthrough. Like, I referenced a couple of trophies that you could potentially get by, like, beating this game under 3 hours and stuff like that. Even though I was referencing trophies, I don't intend for this to be like a guide for getting Platinum Trophy for Resident Evil or anything like that. Which, in order to do that, you do need to play through the game several different times on different levels of difficulty or challenge modes, so since I'm only doing a single playthrough with Jill and then a single playthrough with Chris, I won't be playing through the game nearly enough to actually accomplish all of that. You also need to beat the game by saving a certain number of survivors or no survivors at all. You also have to die in certain ways, or I think just die in general. And I might not even die during this playthrough. So yeah, this definitely is not a trophy guide, just a walkthrough or a playthrough of Resident Evil with Jill and then eventually with Chris. Both of which will be sub 3 hours, although they will be a little bit different from each other. Alright, we used the armor key to unlock that door we tried using as a shortcut earlier, but couldn't because, well, we didn't have the key. And then we went to the hallway beyond that door, and now we find ourselves in this indoor greenhouse area, which if you try to approach that water fountain over there, you would notice that there are these vines that are infected with the T-virus here, the zombie-related virus here. And that means that those vines will attack you if you get close to them. The solution to this problem is the herbicide that we found earlier outside in the dog patio area. We use that by dumping it in this water distribution system over here, turning on the pumps, and then filtering in the plant killer here through the fountain over there by the plants that will try to kill us. And in turn, we exterminate them. Then we are free to advance and we find a mask on the wall. That's 2 masks down. Also, there's a bunch of healing items in this area. I don't intend to come back here, but if you're hurt, this is a great chance for you to heal yourself. And now that we have 2 masks, now I'm going to go to the piano room and start doing that plotline. Don't mind me, guys. I'm just going to go ahead and pass through here. Just act like I wasn't even here. But yeah, I'm really not going to bother with those zombies whatsoever. I just run past them and continue on to the piano room because even if I have to come back here later, their positioning pretty much guarantees they're not going to be a problem for me and I can easily run past them anytime. So they are definitely not worth the bullets or the time. And once I get done pushing this bookcase out of the way, suddenly we find the other half of the music sheets that we found earlier. And once we have both pages, we run back to the piano, we combine the pages, and suddenly we have the completed version of the Moonlight Sonata. And once that is completed, we can use it at the piano, and then suddenly Jill plays the Moonlight Sonata because she is actually musically talented. You know, I phrased earlier that Jill might just be naturally musically talented and, really, really good at being a pianist. But I have no way of knowing that. She may have just taken one random piano lesson in her lifetime and this was like the one song that she knew. But I would like to believe that in her spare time, Jill is actually a remarkably talented musician and has a musical career that no one knows about, and has some sort of a crazy pianist alter ego. Kind of a Ron Swanson, Duke Silver scenario. And being a STARS member is really just her fallback career. And then suddenly her second choice for her line of work is getting her involved with a bunch of zombies trying to eat her. Jill, I think you should have stuck with being a pianist. Random thoughts aside, I had to run back to the dining room to get the emblem, the bronze emblem, because I didn't have the inventory space necessary to pick it up earlier whenever I was carrying the Moonlight Sonata. But once I used it at the piano, I suddenly had the room necessary to put that in my inventory, so I ran and got it, ran back, and switched out the bronze and the gold emblems. So now I just need to run back to the dining room in order to put the gold emblem where the bronze emblem was, and then we can progress. But also, while I was in that room with the statue where I put the bronze emblem, I found some notes on the ground. I flew through them a moment ago, but this is what they said. The journal notes were titled Trevor's Diary, dated November 24th, 1967. 11 days have passed since arriving on this estate. How did I end up like this? A guy in a lab coat brought me a meager plate of food and said, "Sorry to put you through this, but it's for security reasons." That's when it hit me. It all makes sense now. There are only two people that know the secret of this mansion, Sir Spencer and myself. If they kill me, Sir Spencer will be the only person that knows the secret. But for what purpose? It doesn't matter now. It's too dangerous here. My family, I hope they're all right. I've decided to escape. Jessica, Lisa, I pray you are safe. The next part is dated November 26, 1967, so 2 days later. How could I be so careless? I lost my favorite lighter, the one Jessica gave me for my birthday. Now it's going to be much harder to escape this dark place. It was November 13th, the date when my fate was sealed. My aunt was hospitalized just 3 days before that. Jessica and Lisa said that they were going to visit her. I wish I could be there with them. But wait, even as I am writing, my memory is coming back to me more vividly. Just before I passed out, I remember the men in lab coats said something like, "Most likely your family is all ready," but he doesn't complete that quote. I pray for their safety. And then 1 day later, we have some notes from November 27, 1967. Somehow I managed to get out of that room, but getting out of this mansion won't be as easy. I have to get past all the booby traps, tiger eyes, gold emblem. I have to try and remember for my own sake. And that's where the notes end. So yeah, we got to learn a little bit about a guy named Trevor who got caught up in something and was probably in over his head and his family was in trouble. And those notes do give us some pretty fun details about some of the items we have been collecting or seeing or will be seeing eventually. Because I believe those notes would imply that the lighter we found in the mansion actually belonged to this person, Trevor. And then of course we just used the gold emblem, so yeah, we are kind of living out the details of Trevor's note. And that won't be the last time we hear about Trevor and his family, so stay tuned for that. So while I was narrating, I also solved the clock puzzle, which is where you look at the painting on the wall and you move the arms on the clock to do what the swords in the painting are doing. The small sword was puncturing the opponent's torso, so we moved the small arm of the clock toward the armor. The long sword in the painting was right by the opponent's head, so we moved the long arm of the clock towards the helmet. After that, we exited the puzzle, and then the clock moved, and we picked up the attic key, which we are using to go face off against the very first boss of the game.
Payback time.
And introducing Yawn the Snake. And as long as time permits, I'm going to battle every single boss in the game. There are a couple of them that you can run from, but at least for the very first playthrough with Jill, I intend to fight all of them. Now, Chris is a little bit harder of a playthrough to try and get under 3 hours, so I may end up skipping a couple of them for his playthrough, but in this first playthrough with Jill, I'm definitely going to fight them all. And unfortunately for Richard, after we saved him earlier, this is as far as he can go in the story mode with Jill as the main character. Not to worry though, his fate is somewhat different whenever you play through the game as Chris, so we'll check out what the differences are when we finally get to him, but you're going to notice that I just run away from Yawn the Snake. I go ahead and exit this fight. I mentioned earlier that I would fight every single boss fight that I could, but you actually do not defeat Yawn the Snake in this first encounter. Later in the game, though, there is a second encounter, and that's when things are serious and Jill can actually defeat the snake. Here, though, the most you can do is force it to retreat, but there's no killing it, so we're going to save the ammo and progress on, and we'll finish off the boss at a later time. Oh, and you noticed that by saving Richard with the serum, he was able to help me out there a little bit against Yawn, but he ultimately dies and drops his shotgun. That shotgun is only made available if you save Richard the first time around. And I am about to make a mistake by going through this door. I don't mean to do that just yet, so you're going to see me fade to black and be right back where I started. I'm just cutting out all the stuff on the other side of that door that I did not need to do before I backtracked back to this point. I figured that was a lot better than seeing the door opening and closing animation twice, and me realizing that I went the wrong way before I just backtracked back here anyway. Anyway, we got Richard's assault shotgun after he died, but that's only made available if you save him the first time around. And Richard's assault shotgun is going to replace the standard one that we've been using just because it's a bit better, mostly in the form of its storage capacity since it can hold more shells than the standard shotgun can. And one of the differences between Jill and Chris's interactions with Richard is that Jill actually gets that shotgun much sooner than Chris does. And if you are really pressed for time, you and Richard do not have to have that shootout with Yawn the snake. All you really have to do is just run and go get that mask in the back of the attic, and then you run all the way back to the front and exit out the attic door. Now, this dooms Richard to die, but we already noticed that that's kind of an inevitability whenever you're playing as Jill at this part in the game. So leaving Richard to die really does not change anything about the outcome of the game, except maybe saves you a few different shotgun shells and some time. So yeah, gee whiz, that is also an option. You can just leave him to die. And I just realized I completely talked over the puzzle that I just accomplished. So I'll go ahead and explain that really quickly. At the very end of that painting room, we end up seeing a picture of a woman wearing a bracelet, a necklace, and a crown. Bracelet is orange, the necklace is purple, and the crown is green. And throughout the rest of the room, we see pictures of other characters that are also wearing the crown, or also wearing the necklace, or also wearing the bracelet. So you want those other pictures that are not of the woman to match up with the color of the item. So the person that's wearing the bracelet only in the other pictures, you need to flip the switch and turn that to an orange painting. And then you do the same thing with the person who is wearing the necklace. You make sure it's a purple painting matching up with the purple necklace in her picture. And then the same thing with the crown. Once you have those other pictures matched up with the color of the item that she is wearing, come back to her picture, hit the button, and the secret passageway will open, revealing an alternative route through the mansion, which is going to be super useful later on, but also revealing the final death mask. So finally we have all 4. And you see me putting up the 4 death masks now, and we get to finally see what is being restrained in the coffin up in chains above us. Once all 4 of them were in place, that's going to drop down, and we're going to go investigate and kick off the event. And after we drop the coffin down to the ground, we have a required fight against a Crimson Head zombie, which I believe is the only mandatory one that we have to face off against the entire game. I think all the other ones you can technically run away from. So I wouldn't call this a boss battle, although it is required. Maybe sub-boss? And that's still probably giving it a little bit too much credit. But hey, the Crimson Head zombies are a lot more difficult than the regular ones, taking several shotgun shots to get them down, so at least there is a little bit of a challenge to it. But ultimately, if you did pick up the standard shotgun or Richard's assault shotgun, this really should not be too difficult. After defeating the Crimson Head zombie, we hit the switch to open the gate, and we also pick up the stone and metal object, which is going to be acting as kind of a key for us in just a few moments. Also, before we leave this area, I'm going to go ahead and pick up all the shotgun shells. But yeah, this little outside passageway around the cemetery or the gravestones, from this point forward, there will be no enemies in that location. And that's regardless of how far you progress in the game, which I guess just a little bit of a hint for later. The further you progress into the game, the more different kinds of enemies pop up in the mansion. But that never happens out here. This will always be a safe location for you to cut through if you're in doubt about your health or your amount of ammo, anything like that. And whether it is Jill or Chris, I regularly use this location. Okay, here's where you need the stone and metal object to open up a door, but you need to be quick about it because the dog will eventually hop over the railing and chase after you. So you want to run straight to the little platform you have to put the stone and metal object in, open your inventory, place it, and then go through the door as fast as possible so you do not get attacked by the dog or have to use any of your ammo. But yeah, it is about here at this point that I would consider myself a third of the way done with the game. I would say it's right after the Crimson Head zombie required battle. Now, math-wise, that might not add up as far as the 3-hour time frame goes, but actually we have a cutscene coming. One moment.
Somebody respawn! Over!
Barry?
Monster! Chains! Gun! Infected! It's it! Stay away! Forest outside mansion! Stay!
And we are going to completely ignore Barry's advice, and we are not going to stay away, and I'm sure it's going to work out just fine. Anyway, yeah, I consider this around the 1/3 mark of the game. This is when you progress to a new area, and it's always kind of felt like the first of the 3 parts of the game is over at this point. And alright, we have the gate open at this point. For that little puzzle, all you have to do is go up to the 2 posts. The one with the red dial needs to stop on the western direction. The one with the blue dial needs to stop in the northern direction. And once they're moved into place facing those respective directions, the gate will be unlocked and you'll be good to go. Okay, we just ignored Barry's message and went through here anyway, and now we're hearing some really strange moaning. I am still fully confident that this was a good decision and I did not make any mistakes by ignoring my friend's advice. I definitely don't feel like I'm going to be regretting this in the very near future. So to get here, we passed through a little area with some crows. They were just chilling on some graves. And as long as you don't get close to them, they'll ignore you and they don't really care about your presence. So if you just stay cool, they'll be cool. And the same thing goes for the birds in that stained glass painting room. The one right by the safe grave area where we found the Crimson Head zombie a moment ago. If you don't mess with those birds either, they'll let you pass through without ever giving you any trouble. So in this cabin, what we're doing is we're looking for a crank that we're going to be using to lower the water in a little pool area here momentarily. But there's also a journal entry that we're going to be finding on a desk here momentarily after I take the time to do a quick save, because it's going to be the very first save of the game. So that little journal entry is going to be on a family photo, and I'll go ahead and narrate what it says. So it's titled A Family Picture, and you notice that there is a journal left by someone. It's nearly illegible, but the number 19 is on it. It says, Daddy attacked first. Mommy attacked second. Inside red and slimy. White and hard. Not true mom. Where to know dad? Found mom again. When attacked mommy, she moved no more. She's screaming. Why? Just want to be with her. The number 4, followed by the message. Mom, where? I miss you. And with that note read, we are nearly an hour into the game, so I'll go ahead and make this the stopping point for this episode. I'll try to make each time I save where an episode ends going forward. But yeah, we'll pick things up again in the next episode by getting introduced to the person who wrote that creepy note in this cabin. Until then, I hope you enjoyed the episode, and if you did, feel free to check out some of the other stuff I have on the Thor's Entertainment channel. Thank you again for watching, take care, and hopefully I'll see you next time.